Well, hello. It's Dr. Schultz, Josh Schultz, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the methods section of your um, your action research project. Okay, a lot of students wonder, well, what exactly goes in the methods section? So in this very brief lecture, I'll go over why we have a methods section, what to include, and give you some tips for writing academic language that you may use if you're less confident in writing a methods section of a research paper. Okay, so the first thing we want to think about is why the heck we actually have a methods section. Well, you want to think about it this way. Other folks are going to be reading your research. Now, in a professional inquiry project, like a master's thesis or a professional project that would have a methods section, other master's level or graduate level students may use your work as a guide. Those involved in professional development may look to your research for information. Your colleagues, other professors, and folks that are interested in the topic you chose will do Google searches and Google Scholar searches and have access to this material. So you want to be able to write a method section that is so clear that they would be able to follow exactly your process. And while they may not look to, because we're doing qualitative research, they're not looking to replicate results, they are looking to see that your research methods were sound, that it just wasn't all over the place and that you just came up with something, off the top of your head, right? You want to make all of that very visible. So quickly, what do you have to do as you're doing this purpose of the method section? Why are we doing this? We're making the context visible, all the factors that influence a very unique research experience, including, I'll talk a little bit more about what is the context in the next slide, but you want to make that very, very visible. As much information as you can provide your reader, it's possible, about you, about your the setting of your study. No information. I would go for more information rather than less information. As I'm reading your method section, if I feel something is superfluous, I'll tell you to take it out. But otherwise, the more your reader knows about the context, the better, because that research is influenced by the context. Okay, every research section has, every research setting has some things in common, but kids, and especially working in schools and kids and working in schools with kids, those things are some unique factors, okay, that you need to make visible. You're going to share your data collection methods. How did you collect things? When did you collect things, etc.? How did you analyze? And what did you choose? Okay. And what is your methodology? Is your methodology consistent with other teacher action research methods? So go back to your prior research classes, review some of what you've learned about teacher action research, and incorporate some of the articles that were read that will help support the reason that you've chosen to do teacher action research. And as you're talking about in the method section. So how is the method section organized? This was always kind of murky for me as a grad student. I never understood it as a chicken or the egg, or what comes first, chicken or the egg. That's how I felt like when I was doing this method section. So I'm trying to help you with that. Hopefully I'll provide some clearer guidance. Basically, I would organize the method section like this. Provide first an introduction. Your introduction should just give us a brief overview of the project and what's going to happen in this chapter. It's typically chapter 3, so you want to tell us in this chapter 3, you're going to outline the rationale for your project, or you're going to remind readers of the rationale for your project, talk about your data collection process, context, etc. Just lay it out in that first introductory paragraph. Then you're going to move into discussing the context. And as I mentioned here, you're going to talk about the who, what, and where. Who are the participants, including yourself? As much information as you feel comfortable sharing, the better. Who are you as a teacher? What Um, theories of learning do you draw on? What is your experience as a teacher? Are you a first year teacher? Are you 20 years in the classroom? Um, briefly, what are some of your beliefs about learning? Um, yeah, just as much information about who you are, demographic information, etc. Anything that you feel comfortable sharing. Why is that important? Because all of that influences um, how the research is interpreted. Okay, by you as the author. We like to talk about research as being some kind of neutral thing, and um, we aim to be as objective as possible. But in reality, research can never be completely neutral. There are always voices and influences and biases that are examined and unexamined in the research. But the way that we counter that is we make those things visible to our readers. Okay. You'll also discuss, I mentioned your participants, you're one of them, but whoever you're studying, um, students, etc. The setting, both the district. Think about the context in the district you're working in, school you're working in, classroom, and it might be even with a smaller group. Okay, so discuss as much as you can about that. Then you're going to move into your data collection. Talk about your data collection methods. Think about how was the data collected? What were you collecting? I should have put that first. What are you collecting? How was it collected and why? And were there particular phases of data collection? For example, in the first phase, you may have looked at, um, your lesson plans, your sample student work, and taken some field notes, etc. And then in the second phase, what have you done? Have you taken another iteration have you collected another iteration of students writing samples, for example, to see how things were changed? Okay. Tell us a little bit about what the method, this is so hard to talk about without giving an explicit example. So I'll talk a little bit about my dissertation research. I was looking at how changes in English language learners writing, argumentative writing, occurred as I implemented a genre-based approach to persuasive writing instruction. Okay, so first I was, collecting in the first iteration of my data collection. I collected lesson plans, I collected field notes and observations, and I collected initial student work and some course materials that I was using at the time. In the second iteration of data, I collected revised lesson plans. I still had field notes as well, some videos, and second, and a post product after I had implemented the writing instruction. So I was able to analyze that. So my data analysis, this comes to this part, data analysis. Now, what are you actually looking at to examine your data? What do you want to find out? So you think about what are your questions? You have this data collected. What are you looking at? Why are you looking at it? Why are you excluding some parts of the data? So make it very visible to your readers why you're choosing to focus in on that. What information are you hoping to gain from that? And why aren't you looking at other things? How are you looking at it? So for me, I had my second iteration of my students' English language learners persuasive writing pieces in my hand. I was using what's called a systemic functional linguistic approach to language. I was doing kind of a discourse or a writing analysis using some elements of that theory. And I was looking at changes in students' writing. So that was my lens for looking at the work and analyzing my data. And so I coded that. So my analysis was a coding. I would look at, see things for elements of maybe certain emotional words that they call appraisal theory in SFL. But again, this is a little bit hard to talk about without knowing your exact project. But the important thing is you're going to look at how you examined your data, what things you were focusing on, why you were focusing on that. Okay, that's your data analysis. The last, I'm going to leave you with a link that it may not be a live link in this video, but you can just cut and paste this. This is one of many resources that are out there about the academic language of the methods section. If you go to this link, let's see, no, it doesn't allow me to do that. But when you go to that link, you will be able to see a number of great tips for academic language that you would use. So I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, you know where to find me, or how to find me, or how to contact me. Have a great time writing your methods section. It's going to be fantastic.